All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Sex and Bacon podcast. On today's episode, I have with me Dallas Bluth, and we are going to talk about really hot sex from the male perspective. But before we get into that, I'll let you give everybody a quick introduction as to who you are and what it is you do in general so they get context of where this conversation is coming from.
Sure. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for having me on. So, yeah, my name is Dallas Bluth. I run Black Box Dating. I do dating and relationship coaching for men specifically. I work a little bit with couples, but mainly I'm focused on the male side of things. What I do is based on real confidence, deeper connections, and like you said, that leads to really hot sex. So, really hot sex is kind of the outcome that we're looking for, but there's a lot of work that we do from the beginning to actually lead on the way up into that. I work with men of all different ages from 20s on into their 70s. So, yeah, there's quite a range here.
Okay. So is it always based on relationship style in that regard or just in general? Because I feel like in general for women, really hot sex can mean something different and look very different compared to a guy's version of really hot sex.
100%. Just look at the porn industry and how it's designed for men. And that's hot for them. And I'm sure women, that's not really what they're looking for. Yeah, really hot sex could mean a whole lot of different things. Let's go back though. What do you mean by relationship style?
So I guess the reason I say that is so for women, I'm going to be very vulgar here, so bear with me. There's two different types of, I guess, sex that we have. We have sex where it's like we're fucking. You could have a really hot fuck session with somebody, or you're having orgasms, but there's not necessarily, say, the emotional intimacy part of that.
Mhm.
But the sex itself can still be hot. It could have toys, can have all these things. But then we have the other side where we're emotionally connected to somebody and then it's passionate and it's intense and that can be really hot sex. So,
Yes.
two sides of that. And I've
Gotcha.
always felt like for men, well, and this is going to sound stupid, but I said this to somebody yesterday. I was like, because I said I was like, excited for this because to me, men come the same way every time. They have a penis and it eventually ejaculates and they have an orgasm. Where for women, because we have to sometimes mentally be there, we don't necessarily always have the same type of orgasms. So I'm like, so what's hot to a guy versus what's hot to us? What is that?
Very different. Yeah. So the way I look at it is guys kind of are when it comes to, let's just talk about orgasms. For guys, we tend to be in a straight line. And that goes all the way back to like where we started in middle school, maybe even elementary school, where it's like we discovered this thing between our legs and we realized like if we touch it a certain way, something awesome happens. And it's like mind blowing. It's like, oh my gosh. And we're like, oh, well, I'm just gonna do that again. And I'm gonna do that again to do that again. And it's like, and there might be some different fantasies going on in our heads. There might be some different stimulation, but really, when it comes down to it, there's a very straight line that most men encounter when they discover their own sexuality. And it's a straight line. And it doesn't take longer or shorter. It doesn't veer a whole lot. So what we actually develop is a pretty clear understanding of what sex is by ourselves for quite a while, probably, years. And we get that and we feel that we know what sex is all about before we've actually even encountered having sex with a woman. So it's very clear. And feel free to correct me, but from my understanding, what I've listened to from a lot of women is that women approach sex from all different directions, from childhood, different fantasies, different thoughts, different ways that they discover their bodies, different ways that an orgasm isn't really where it's at. That's only a component of it. So it's a much more of like a terrain that's being like revealed and explored. Where again, coming back to the guys, it's more like a straight line. And so when I talk with guys about sexuality, which is really actually a very small amount of the work that we actually do, I'm not a sex coach per se, but I do try to help them understand that we tend to have like sort of, point A to point B, goal oriented sex thinking a lot of the time out of the box because that's how we started. And you need to understand that a lot of times with a woman, it's like a canvas. And if all you're doing is bringing like a little pencil and just like scratching back and forth, like in the same straight line over and over, she's not going to experience much sexual arousal at all. And it's definitely not going to get very hot. And really, from the guy's point of view, you're missing out on an entire like vast set of possibilities that you could be having in sex, because it's not just that little straight line pencil that you started with. It's like everything from spray cans to finger paint is up for grabs when you're being fully sexual with a woman and when she feels safe enough to open up and be fully sexual with you. And that's where sort of anything starts to go. You start to become truly creative in the two of you, in what that energy is going to bring back and forth. And then the hotness can be anything from, a sexy encounter that's purely physical to a deeply emotional encounter that's really intense, like makeup sex, or very quiet. And, I forgot which one of them, one of the great psychoanalysts talked about how, the orgasm in the quiet was actually the ideal for a lot of people. So there's, depending on the mood and where you're going with it, the sexual energy can be quite different. I think guys have to break out though of where we started thinking that sex is a very predefined, limited thing. And a lot of guys just, I think, don't really become aware of that until much later in life.
And is it because they're not becoming aware of it much later in life because they've had unfulfilling sex lives or they've had relationships that, are feel like there's something lacking?
I think maybe it's that they never had a deep enough emotional connection with a woman that caused them to open up and become aware of all the possibilities. I think a lot of guys also, I mean, we're wired this way. We need to be competent in something in order for us to sort of earn respect and do well in life. So we're reluctant to give up our position of thinking we know how something works. So like, I know how sex works. I've been doing it since I was 12 and it has worked every single time. Well, it's to let go of that and to go, well, maybe I don't know, how sex works, and to open up to, again, a much broader canvas of what's possible. There is a certain, I guess you could say, vulnerability in that. There's a certain letting go of our confidence in how things work. And of course, like for a guy, if you're in a sexual situation, if you let go of your confidence, like that's a dicey situation. So learning how you can be open and receptive without feeling like you're sacrificing your confidence or your competency, like in bed, that can be really tricky to do.
Okay. So can a guy actually does do most men know the difference between really hot sex then and just sex?
They think they do. Most guys, we have our understanding of the world. In an objective sense, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think women would be far more qualified to answer that question than guys are. I would completely defer. And let me just say that everything that I'm talking about with sex and is part of it is the result of listening to a lot of women tell me what is and is not effective, with them. This is not just some kind of bro code, like pushing it on it. Like I have listened to a lot of female friends about what works and what doesn't. And a lot of times when I'll share an idea with them, I'm looking for the twinkle in their eye and the little smirk on their face to come out to see, does this actually like make them tingle inside? Like, is there actually something going on? That's actually my barometer. So, and that's also what I counsel guys on is, hey, you don't know what hot sex is. And even if you have had hot sex in the past, you don't know what hot sex with this woman is going to be. So open up, observe, listen, watch, and don't assume that you know. Because every sexual encounter you're going to have with a woman, if you're doing it right, is going to be totally well, it'll have aspects of other ones, but it'll be totally different, new, and unique with this woman. And that for me is, where the hot sex really lives.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. And you're right. It's very unique to each person and partner, I suppose, that you have in that way. And I feel like from the woman's side, here's the thing, in a non-relationship sense, I think sometimes it's harder for a woman to kind of maybe vocalize per se what it is that they need that would be then like getting them into that really hot sex kind of like vibe, which I feel like you could have with somebody that you're not in a relationship with. But I think there's a gap between a man's thinking of sensuality or all of those things, and then a woman is somebody who, yeah, okay, I respect that there's no commitment, there's not we're having fun. However, in order for me to be in a place where I'm fully enjoying, I'm a sensual person versus say somebody who's into BDSM or all those things, which there's those the five sexual archetypes and all these things, and understanding what it is that a woman actually needs versus thinking it means something else gap. Like, as a woman, if I want to light candles and have candlelight, while we're having sex, it's not because I think we're making love. It's because I need that sensual, soft glow or the way that it looks on your skin to enhance the aspect of getting into a place of being like, we're having really hot sex, right? But so when you're talking to men and you're dealing with men in your practice, do you find that those are conversations that kind of come up about trying to help them understand all of those areas?
Probably not as much as they should. Listening to you talk about it, I'm realizing that, every woman needs something different to essentially open up her sexuality and have the sexual slash sensual experience that she wants. And I would say, yeah, this is why I actually have female dating coaches on the team as well. Is, I can explain some of the internal workings of a guy, what we call the inner game, so that he's coming in with things lit up the way he needs to. But I will never, ever be in the shoes of a woman and truly understand that while one woman needs to be, needs candles and a certain type of lighting to feel a certain way about her body image, to feel a certain way about her own beauty, to shift the speed from whatever it was out in the outside world on a date to the kind of speed she needs to relax and open up in bed. One woman needs that. Another woman needs you to literally grab her like by the throat, and get real dominant with her. And I think what it is with a guy is like you need to realize like you don't know that. You don't know who and what she is. And I mean, you never know before you're sexual with the person what their sexual side is like. You just can never guess
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And again, it's a matter of, be inquisitive, be interested, and check in and see. Because the two pieces of advice that I do give constantly to guys when it comes to sexuality is first one, slow down. Slow the fuck down. Because again, we think we know how this works. We're going somewhere. And some guys naturally slow down, and that they take their time. A lot of guys don't. And it's like, slow the whole thing down. You're going to have a banquet. Like, there's no rush. Take your time, enjoy it. And the more you slow it down, the more that's going to give the cue to the woman that she can also slow down and set herself in the pacing and the mood, in the physiology, and, and show that, if I'm slowing down as a guy, I'm listening, I'm receiving, I'm looking for those cues to see what will make you feel the most comfortable. And I tell guys, like, the more comfortable the woman is, the more she's going to open up. The more she opens up, the more the exchange is going to happen and the hotter the sex. The other rule that I give guys to remember in the bedroom, one, slow down, always slow down. And then two, your pleasure is pretty much guaranteed to happen. Her pleasure is not. So if you really want to have a fabulous sexual experience, focus on her pleasure first. And one, because it's only fair. If the guy's probably kind of guaranteed or pretty close to guaranteed to get off, I know there's exceptions, but it's only fair to make sure that she's taken care of. And the more turned on she is, the more it is about her pleasure, the more she's going to want the guy to have pleasure in return. It's going to be this natural reciprocation. But like, you have to lead with that. You have to lead with demonstrating that importance. And so knowing that, what a woman needs is to have music on or the lights off or whatever it is, understanding that's there and then meeting it, even if it's not particularly what you want as a guy, showing the importance and slowing down to really meet the woman at the desires that she's with and making her feel safe and calm and relaxed. Then it's like, well, actually, it really turns me on to have a little bit of mood lighting. Is it okay if I turn on, that lamp on the side table? And then she might be open to it. She just didn't want to start there, like had to get to that relaxed place. Those are the only two rules of thumb that I really give guys like in the bedroom. Remember these two things because they're pretty universally important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a huge one. The slow down aspect is, I think, with all of the stuff that we kind of learn growing up as women, that it's always kind of been more about the guy's pleasure. That's been the focus, right? Is, it's for the babies or it's about his pleasure, what he needs. And you got 10 minutes at the end of the day, 20 minutes. And to the point where I can't even tell you how many times I think that I have just, yeah, you've had sex with somebody just because it was easier just to like, cool, like, yeah, you can get in. But like, I'm not present, I'm not engaged. You're basically using me as like a plastic doll in that moment. But it's just like feeling like you owe it, or yeah, I guess, right?
So fucked up.
Yeah.
That is so fucked
Right?
up. You don't
Yes.
owe it.
Yeah.
Women
Yeah.
do not owe shit to men, especially
Yeah.
sexually. They do not. What they
Yeah.
owe is to be true to what they're experiencing. And if women do not experience being turned on, they don't owe any sex to a man,
Mm-mm.
period.
Mhm.
I mean, just
Yeah.
fucking end of story. That's like it. And I tell women, I'm like, set the bar fucking higher for dudes. If you're not turned
Yeah.
on, don't say yes. Because here's the thing, if you say yes when you're not turned on, that's telling us that we're doing good enough. And we're already
Mm.
stuck in our little, ignorant male ego brains thinking that we've already got it all figured out.
Right.
And if we're getting the sex that we want, even though we don't get it figured out, like we're not going to learn. It's like,
Right.
say no, set the bar and say, hey, you know what? I'm not really turned on. And I want to have sex when I'm turned on. Like, that's fair.
Mhm.
I mean, that's just, I mean, what you're saying, I mean, I've seen it personally many times. I hear it
Yeah.
many times in talking with women in relationship. And I just want to say, like, that is so fucking not fair to women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's like even amongst girls, we talk about that. I'm like, how nice to be a guy and you have a heart on, you're good to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's so much more that it takes to get us good to go. But that's where then guys get in the habit of we'll just grab some lube. Cool. So I'm not
Oh my
turned
God.
on, but we'll just make it slippery so that it still slides
Oh,
in and you
Jesus.
still get what you need out of
Oh my
it.
God.
Right? Like
Right. Okay.
that's
Okay. So let's talk about foreplay for a second. Okay. Like, let's get
how
real specific. Okay. Like, let's talk
yeah.
about foreplay, and let's talk about more specifically foreplay in a relationship.
Okay.
Because, foreplay in casual situations, there's novelty, there's other things. But I think what you're describing is often the situation in a relationship. Okay. He just
Mhm.
wants to get off. I just wanted to stop nagging me or whatever. If he just sticks it in, we're done. So the thing that I try to like tell guys about foreplay in a relationship is it's ongoing. It's always happening. The way that a guy is always thinking about sex, match that with the foreplay should always be ongoing towards sex. If you've got that constant buildup going inside of you, which we talk about is like the drips in the bucket and, it just has to happen. Well, I mean, then the foreplay should be going on and on. A huge part of it also, and it goes directly to what you said of like, oh, it's just easier just to let him do it, even if I'm not turned on. And it's like,
Right.
okay, so I have one rule in dating, and that rule applies once you go into relationships. Okay, the rule is don't burden the woman. Anytime,
Okay.
anytime that you're doing something, and let's go real light, we'll go back to dating for a second. If I'm like, oh, well, what do you want for dinner? Like, whatever you want. It's like, ugh. Yeah, it's like I've already made 38 decisions in the last 2 hours. I do not need another decision to make. But if I'm like, hey, I was in the mood for sushi tonight. How's that sound to you? And you're like, okay, cool. Like, not a burden. I can edit that, I can change it. But the guy isn't like, no, whatever you want. Just tell me whatever makes you happy. It's like not a turn on. And so that's in a simple sense. And then you go all the way to the other end of the spectrum of like, I'm really horny. It's like these are my needs. They need to be met. They need to be taken care of. It's like, dude, that's not going to turn any woman on. It's just not. Telling the woman, I am so horny for you is different because you're showing desire. But I'm not saying that, and you need to take care of me. Like, I'm a big boy. I've been taking care of myself since I was 12. Like, I can deal with this on my own. And when I show to you the focus, the intensity, and the desire that is very much about you, and I can say, look, and I can manage this myself, but if you like this energy. And that's where I tell guys like that buildup that happens over time, you want to be in a certain sense sharing that and kind of not offloading, but kind of inviting the woman to experience your buildup over time. That, hey, I was thinking about this and so that she can kind of share in that anticipation that you have because women love, like I tell guys, there's two dates happening in a woman's mind: the date you're actually on and the date she's been imagining for like the last week. Guess which one is actually more significant in her experience? It's the buildup one.
Yeah.
So coming
Yeah.
back to a relationship, what I tell guys is the foreplay is that buildup, and it needs to be happening on an ongoing basis the entire time. And the way that you do that is you do it, I would say, the way that I I've found is most effective, and a lot of women like it, is you're doing it indirectly. I have found, the old thing is like a woman is telling a guy his problems, a woman is telling a man her problems, and the man makes the mistake of jumping in and trying to fix them. Okay, so I personally don't believe that instinct is bad in a man. I mean, first of all, that's how we're wired, and that's how we get shit done in life. And I don't think the desire to fix the situation is a problem. The problem is we're trying to give her the solution and fix her thinking and approach to it. What I tell guys is women don't work that way. Women work much more
Mhm.
indirectly and environmentally. So let her talk and all that stuff and observe her environment. So if you guys are living together and there's a bunch of dishes in the sink, I've been told one of the things that is a huge distraction for women for being in the mood is all this stuff that isn't done in my house. Like the dishes are there, or, I need to do this laundry, or there's a bunch of things. It's like, dude, if you want her to be in the mood, don't try to fix her fucking environment.
Right.
Regulate that environment. Like, you want to turn a woman on? It's 8:45 at night and it snowed yesterday and today it's above freezing and her car looks like a mess. You be a man, go out into the garage, get her car, take it to the fucking car wash while it's cold, while she
Mhm.
stays at home, and bring it back into the garage. And the next morning, when she goes out and goes into the car, and she's gonna be like, "Oh my God, that feels amazing. Like my man
Right.
did that for me." That's foreplay.
Yeah.
The woman has a bunch of things she has to do. You're just over there doing dishes. That's foreplay. Going in and reducing the amount of laundry that's there. And again, you're not a fucking whipped little boy because you're doing it. You are a man regulating the environment that the woman is in. And that environment is going to dictate her environment inside of herself. Okay, I'm going to. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, shit. Yeah, 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 yeah. Absolutely, they do. And I'm glad to hear that what I'm saying resonates with you. I mean, it's resonated with every woman, that I've ever talked with. When I paint this picture, they're like, hell yeah. And even people that are in marriages that have really gone off the rails, and basically the trust has been broken down to the point where I don't believe him, I don't believe her. And I'm like, okay, buddy, well, what if you told her that you want her to take 20 minutes out, 30 minutes out every evening for a bath? And that while she's taking the bath, you want her to tell you the things that would actually remove the most burden from herself. So, like I said, in dating, the one rule is don't burden the woman. Don't add to the burden. That's your goal in dating. When you move into a relationship and you're more involved with each other's lives, continue to not add, but also look for ways that you can remove. Observe your woman. Observe what like sets in and start to learn the things that actually lighten her back up, the things that you can remove in doing it. And if you were in a marriage where there isn't trust, you can say, look, baby, like, I know this isn't there. I want you to have a different experience in this fucking house. So I want you for the next 7 nights in a row to take a 30-minute, 45-minute, whatever. I want you to take that out. And I think this is the thing that if I did it, it would actually unburden you the most. Is that it? Or is there something more? And one, by taking a guess and showing it, you're showing that you're thinking, you're observing, you're trying. And then by inviting her to give the feedback and improve what you're doing, it shows that you're receptive and you're listening. And then go fucking do it. If you did that for 7 days in a row, while that woman is enjoying whatever it is that she wants to enjoy, it's very hard for me to imagine that we haven't reestablished a lot of trust between those two people. I imagine that woman would be much more interested or at least intrigued in the idea of being sexual with him. That's like 1 week, but that's like some concrete stuff. So,
Yeah. Do you get pushback from men that you're working with that are like, "Fuck this, she should do this for me." I'm not doing this for her,
mhm,
like, because I mean, like, I
yeah,
I witness a lot of
yes,
that. There's a whole lot of
absolutely.
that in, like,
Yeah,
these dating apps and
yeah,
conversations
mhm,
and,
yeah,
"What do you bring to the
right.
table?" and "My woman should be to this."
Right.
So
Okay. So that's okay. All right. So now we're getting down to what I actually work on. Okay. I say it is dating, it is relationships, it is the dynamic back and forth. All of that, though, is rooted in masculinity for the guy. That's why I coach men specifically. And that's why I speak to that. Okay. If you are giving this tit for tat bullshit answer back and forth, well, she didn't do this and I didn't do that and whatever, you are being fucking petty, dude. You are really being petty. Get back to your core values, get back to what you care about, and then start communicating it clearly and demonstrating it clearly. Get back to a straight line because if you're doing, oh, well, she didn't do this and they did that, like you have no direction whatsoever in yourself if your entire narrative dialogue is based on, well, that's not fair. That's what a little boy says. That is not what a man says. A man says, okay, what I'm doing isn't effective. Baby, what would be effective for you? Because I want to be an effective man in a relationship with you. And apparently, I'm not doing it right. I am a man that does the job right. Please tell me what it is that I need to do in order to do the job right. I mean, that is, taking this petty back and forth bullshit. And it goes back to a man simply saying, this is where I'm going. And if a woman cannot respond to that, then you ask yourself, okay, is this woman looking to cooperate in a way that works with me? Should I stay here or should I go? Because what I'm offering here is pretty high quality and high value. And clearly I am wasting it with, on these responses that I'm getting back. And that's where you also are regaining, your own power in a masculine man of saying, I'm not going to put up with this baloney, this drama, this bullshit. That's what
Sure.
yeah.
Dallas, can you please do me a huge favor? Any of the single men that you are teaching this to and are working with, can you please send them up to Alberta, Edmonton specifically? Because we are dying up here.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. What we need to do is we need to set up, the international black box dating, singles event up there. That's what we need to do. Yeah,
Please. Yeah.
right, absolutely.
Yes.
And so let me just say, so because you're essentially saying, Dallas, like, do you get pushback from guys about this? Okay, and this is the thing: is I have female dating coaches that we work with, and they work with things that I'm not the best at, but profile pictures, what kind of suit you should wear, how to do your hair. Like I don't know. I'm never going to be as good at that as a woman is, like
Right.
and men will hear that from women a certain way. So similarly, there are certain things that men can only hear from another man. And so for me, when I'm saying to him, it's like, well, dude, you're complaining about her body, but you haven't looked at your own body, man. Like seriously, like lead by example. I mean, that's really what it comes down to is one, lead, and then second, lead by example. Like that's the way we need to be doing this for a woman to be able to relax and then be turned on, like lead by example. But when the guy is pushing back and going like, well, hey, she's doing this, and I'm like, dude, this isn't about what kind of a relationship you want to be in first. This is about what kind of a man you want to be. Are you the kind of guy that when you're not doing something, you're going to point the finger at somebody else? Or do you get your own fucking house in order? Like, what kind of a guy are you? One of the clients I was working with recently was upset by how much this woman reacted to him, like yelling and banging on the counter and everything, when she found out he lied to her. So the woman reacted with a lot of anger when it was revealed that the man had lied to her. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's a big reaction, but hang on. Are you the kind of guy that lies to your woman? Because seriously, as far as I'm concerned, if I lie to the woman that I'm having sex with and that we're having an emotional bond, if I lie to her, it's fair game, whatever comes out at me at that point. You're off the mark. And it really did resonate with them. And of course, it's like there's still a struggle to try to unravel all that, which is why we have to do workshops over time, to really reprogram these things. Like it takes time. But the pushback I get from guys is sometimes initial. But when I speak to them in themselves and their own identity, because this really comes down to what kind of a guy are you? What is your identity? When you do that, the man, there's like, I don't know, like a light bulb that comes on and like all the drama with the woman just kind of, it just goes away. Like we realize, oh, I was out of alignment and I'm actually turned on when I'm in alignment. And that's all that I really have to regulate here,
Right.
And I mean, tell me what you feel, but like when a man has alignment in himself, it's pretty
Yeah.
easy to regulate yourself around him. Like it's, he's just easier to work with.
It is, and I do feel energetically that there is naturally some men that you'll spend time with that always you have that anxious feeling inside when you're with them, and then there's men that you can spend time with that you can always just feel settled,
Hmm.
right? And I think that's the difference between sometimes I think that's the difference between somebody being like, I guess, a toxic guy and, or toxic dick, like girls like to call them, things like that. But there is a difference. There is a difference in a man having that regulated nervous system, know what they want, and they're able to provide not in a financial way necessarily, but in the space emotionally. The woman can just fully be that feminine person. I'm going to ask you a question though here because so many women, I think, we tend to, and I'm not saying a whole woman per se, sometimes I think when a woman isn't quite regulated and we're kind of going through our own healing journey and all of these things, we tend to fall in love through sex,
Really? Okay.
really through good sex. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
It's
Mhm.
right. Yeah. Bad sex. No, fuck. I mean, you're not getting a condom. But with
Right.
good sex and things that we feel like the high endorphins, we then become emotionally attached to the
Right.
man. And the
Right.
man
Right.
typically is a very toxic man and not a man that we should be attached to in any form. But those are the ones that we seem to form those
Right.
attachments to. So,
Right.
sexually,
Yeah.
do men form the same type of emotional connection through sex that women do? Or,
Uh,
where's the
yeah.
difference there?
So we do definitely form emotional attachments to women. We form them a lot more than women are aware of. Also, I would say that the emotional attachment that we form, though, probably looks a little different. I think a lot of times when a guy gets very emotionally attached to a woman, before I would say there's a healthy two-way vulnerability, a healthy, pair bonding happening in a relationship. When a guy is just kind of emotionally attached to a woman quickly, that's more coming from a nice guy syndrome situation. And it's more like, oh, I need this, I want this. And they're kind of like they're like, they don't want it to go away. And they've suddenly slipped into a place where they're not that confident and they're not remembering that, like, you had this wonderful experience with her. She's not the only one you can have the experience with, and you can probably have it again with her, but keep on going where you're going, as opposed to thinking, oh, she is going to be the source of this experience for me. And that's going from an independent place of trajectory, which is the sexy, healthy masculine way, to a place of attachment and essentially kind of needing from, which is more or less a mother child relationship at that point. And the man is more or less suckling, whatever he needs from her. And that's, again, going to feel a lot like a burden to a woman. Now, I'm not sure that what a woman experiences is quite the same, because I'm going to guess, and tell me if I'm getting this right, but when a woman feels that way, I think what a woman feels is a natural urge to just give. Like she just wants to give herself to him, the situation, to this opportunity. And the thing is, this is the beautiful thing about that. And the tragic part about it being with toxic men is that is the gift of a woman. When she is truly open, she gives of herself. I mean, it is the most joyful thing. And just to bring it back to the topic of really hot sex, I mean, that is where the really hot sex happens. I mean, when a woman is open and she just wants to give, anything goes in the bedroom. I mean, anything goes. And it's not only anything goes, it's the woman is, please tell me what you want. Please tell me what turns you on. Please tell me what I can do so that, you keep coming back to me the way I'm crawling over to you. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like that is the hot thing. And the problem is, the nice guys oftentimes get hijacked by the premature attachment, which prevents that proper structure from really locking into place. And it's only the toxic men that and that toxicity, whether it's narcissism, whether it's, a weird form of codependency manipulation, whatever it is, those men are actually not that emotionally available. So they're not attached because they can't actually form any type of connection anyway.
Ugh, it's
And
like every woman's nightmare is the emotionally unavailable man
yes,
that
yes,
had the really good dick that gave them the really good orgasms that they don't want to lose. You're right. We go out of our way to do everything and anything to
yeah,
try to keep them.
yeah,
We answer the messages right away. We're available when they want to
yeah.
because it's just like if I don't show up continually
Okay,
over and over,
all right.
he's going to want somebody else.
Okay, so can I throw in what I think is the crowbar that women should use in those
Yes.
situations? It's the
Yes.
same one as before. Set and keep the standards. Like one of the magic things that a woman can say to a man when she's dating him, one, to get what she wants, but even more important, to have a shit test on that guy is to say, you know what I would really like? Or no, sorry. You know what would make me really happy? And then fill in the blank with whatever you want. You know what would make me really happy? Is if you call me once every day. You know what would make me really happy? Is that when I send you a text message, I know I'm going to hear back from you within 24 hours. You know what would make me really happy? Is if you would bring me flowers once a week. Whatever the thing is, okay? This is a great practice for women, and is because one, I think that it's good for women to ask themselves, what actually makes me happy with this man? What in what's going on here makes me happy as a woman? And then two, and this is the really important thing, does the guy do it? Because whether the guy does it or not is going to tell you whether or not he wants to do the things that actually make you happy. So if you tell the guy, look, I want to hear from you by text or a phone call in the evening before you go to bed, even if I'm already asleep, I just want to wake up and see that I got it from you. That would make me really happy. So the guy is going to either go, "Ah, I don't know," or, it's like, well, you seem kind of needy or whatever. But if the guy's like, well, I'm into you, I want you to be happy. That's the basic, like, first building block of I care about you is I want you to be happy. As guys, we don't know what makes a woman happy necessarily. I mean, sometimes we're lucky, there's an alignment, there's an announce. But if you want to help a guy and you want to shit test him at the same time, you say the magic words, you know what would make me really happy? And then fill in that with whatever you want. Don't go all princess, don't be like, like all the last things. Don't make it egotistical and self-serving. Don't do that. But the idea is one, articulate to yourself or articulate to him what it is that you're looking for, what really would make you happy, and then see whether or not your happiness means a lot to him in his behavior. And then, if he doesn't do it, acknowledge the fact that he is showing, because behavior is a language, he is showing you through his behavior that your happiness isn't actually that important to him.
Okay.
That's the bar right there. You tell me, but I mean, does this man care about my happiness or not? Like, that's the basic red light, green light, choice to make.
Yeah. I feel like that is a very tangible and valid way to have that standard and that benchmark. I feel like there's just so a lot of women running around feeling like there's no good men left, or they go through a string of, you know, right? Like bad relationships, abusive ones, or this and that, that all of a sudden when they get a glimmer of somebody who they're finally attracted to after swiping on 200 profiles, it's this feeling of desperation of, but okay, well, we excuse it away, we
Yeah,
justify it,
you're starstruck.
right?
Yeah, yeah, and you're hoping.
Yeah.
Finally, you
Like,
have hope after hopelessness, a desert, and someone gives you a
yes.
cup of water, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, this is wonderful." Okay, look, yes,
Yeah.
that's good. That's good. Now, tell that cup of water that you want more water,
Okay, fair.
right?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Tell that cup
Yeah.
of water what you did. I want you to keep doing it because I need it.
And I guess if that cup of water says, "No, that was the only cup of water you're ever getting," it's just like you either choose to stay in the
Exactly.
desert
Exactly.
or
And let me just say, and please understand, let me preface this with saying I am not putting the onus and responsibility on women whatsoever for men's behavior. Not at all. We dropped the ball a long ass time ago. Like, I don't know, 40, 50 years ago at least. If we ever had the ball in our hands to begin with, I'm not even sure that it was ever the case. But we definitely dropped it even worse. I don't know, somewhere back in the 80s or 90s or something. And it has been rolling away from us ever since. And until somebody tells us, no, that's not good enough, we're not going to go looking for proper behavior. We're not going to go looking for the pieces that we need to bring to the table to actually make the woman happy. And basically, it is one word that women need. And it is the most powerful word in the universe when we're talking about sex and men. The word's no. Women have all the power when it comes to sex. There's a lot of other things that men do have a lot of power in, but when it comes to down to it, women are the scarce resource. They're the ones that get to walk into the club for free, and men are sitting there paying $50. Like, there is that women have the power. And I feel like a lot of women feel powerless. They feel like they've lost track with that. They don't identify with that. Um, you do. I work with men all the time that are fucking terrified of even talking.
Really?
Absolutely. They're terrified. They're like, I don't know what to say to her. I don't know how to approach. I don't know what to do. And these are guys making plenty of money that look good, that have all of it, but they don't know what to do.
See, and we just assume that because they have the money and they look good, that they have this confidence and that they know what they're doing, change it in a heartbeat, and they could do this and they could do that. And we're the ones sitting over here scared and insecure,
Yeah. Well,
worried about what is he thinking? What is he going to say? When's he going to say it?
yeah.
Should I reach out or
Right. So yeah, and you end up in this like fucked up relationship without even the relationship part. It's like a dysfunctional
yes.
public relationship. Yeah. That's why we're doing, a discussion like this on your
Yeah.
podcast, is to
Yeah.
air some of these things. And I really think that what it really comes down to when you have to do that is, well, let's start getting a little more honest and real and vulnerable in saying that. And
Hmm.
again, and it's just a little tiny piece, but I really believe in simple tools. When a woman says to a man, hey, you know what would make me really happy? And then when the man doesn't do it and comes crawling around, let's say, well, I really want to hear from you once a day. And it's been a week and you've heard from him twice, but now he's horny and now and now he's remembering how attractive you are. He's remembering how much he missed you and all of that stuff. And now he's thinking about what would make him happy, which is coming over and, getting laid. And that's when you have to say, no, I told you what would make me happy. And let's be honest, you haven't done it, and I'm not happy with you. Do you want to try again? Or should you just maybe not text me anymore? I mean,
Hmm.
that from a woman would be fucking sexy, like a woman that says that. Because without that feedback that we failed, we're not
Hmm.
going to try and do it better.
Right.
We need to be told. And I know there are men on the internet that are like hating me to an extreme right now in saying this, but this is the fucking truth. As long as all we get is yeses all day long, we grow softer and softer. When a woman tells us no and we have to step up, that's called resistance. But that is the healthy kind of resistance you need when you go to the gym to get fit. That's what you need to actually activate the masculinity inside of yourself. That's what it takes to actually exercise some fucking discipline. And that's the
Right.
thing. All masculinity is forged in discipline.
What you were saying kind of brought me back to that, like you said at the beginning about it being a straight line, like pleasure, this and that. Cause it's like, as the women who are the ones saying no, I mean, there's a whole lot that are just saying yes. So that's when you have men that are just like, well, she's gonna say no. So through the roster, I'm going through the next because of the fact where, and that's why I guess I kind of asked, like, can men not tell the difference between really hot sex, or do they really know the difference? Because if we have a connection and we have really hot
Yeah.
sex and it's great, is it enough? Is it enough to get a guy to eventually be like, I want that for the rest of my life?
Yes, but a guy, so a lot of men, the validation that the relationship is working well is in bed. So if the sex is good, the relationship's good. For a lot of guys, that's how it works. For women,
Okay.
it is largely a much larger thing than that. Okay, so we need the help. We need to run into a no that then helps us go, oh, right, laundry. Oh, right, mowing the lawn. Oh, right, bring home flowers once in a while. Oh, say things in particular that make her feel beautiful, desired, appreciated, like she's special. We need those reminders because we can get tunnel vision very much. And the no, in a way, bounces us out and goes, no, oh, door's closed. Let me start exploring different paths. And it helps us essentially go from tunnel vision to a larger awareness. And it helps us become aware of where we're dropping the ball. And we need that help. The same way that like a woman probably needs, some feedback from a guy where we're like, you're driving me crazy, girl. Like, come on. Like, the concert's going to start in 10 minutes and we need to get in the car. Like sometimes a woman needs a guy to also give her some feedback about some stuff. We're talking about one side of this, this relationships, side specifically. There are things to be done on both sides. But you mentioned that like some women that are like, just say yes and everything. Well, We know the difference between a high quality woman and a not high quality woman. A high quality woman is selective. A high quality and selective means she says no a lot more often than she says yes. And a woman that knows that and owns that and imbues that power in herself, but also is open to being approached the right way. Because there's also like the ice queen, that says no to every guy. The balance is I have standards and I'm open to guys dating me and giving me what it is that actually makes me happy. That is a matter of setting and maintaining standards and realizing that those standards are actually healthy for a man. We need that structure to work with in order for us to do it. Otherwise, we're just little boys in basements playing video games and jerking off to porn. Like, that's all we are. It's because video games, porn, basement where we don't pay rent, and like pizza, like these are just like yeses across the board with no resistance. That is a pale, fat, sad little motherfucker. Like, it's like there is nothing sexy about him. We must be met with standards and demands. And we also have to be met with an opportunity to succeed. And when we succeed, we need to be told we succeeded. We need to be essentially like rewarded or something. Because otherwise, we're like, well, I don't get it. And again, that comes back to, what would make me really happy? You do it and then show the happiness.
Right. Yeah.
And a really simple feedback loop, but it really helps a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that would for sure. So then a lot of the guys though that are coming to you, like you mentioned, you have some that are in their 20s, I guess you said, right? Like, so these are some younger guys that are probably approaching this state of more serious relationships, correct?
Just a little bit ago, earlier today, actually, I was working with a marketing specialist on, some of my packaging and all that kind of thing for the
Yeah.
products that I offer. And, we were talking about the different profiles. And she was like, specifically, what do the guys in this younger age group say to you? Like, and
Yeah.
stuff. And they're basically like, seriously, it's almost the exact same thing. It's basically two questions. One is, where are the hot women? And two, and even more common than that one, the question is, do you have any advice for me? They haven't even reached the place where they have a problem yet. Like they are such, so young in what they're doing. They haven't even reached the place where they know, like they haven't even reached the frustration yet in it.
Okay.
That is what a lot of those, guys are experiencing. And I think it's because a lot of the women that they're experiencing, sex is still happening so casually and so easily, or they had so much pornography growing up that they're kind of disconnected from real world women, and they're not even because
Talk about that for a minute, please? In the depths that, like, because when you said that I feel like there is such a disconnect. And I say that in the sense where it's like I've dated men who didn't watch porn. And I mean, I was shocked to find out that they didn't. It wasn't really their thing. But I found that their level of wanting to please and having it be more about me was higher compared to I dated a guy who watched it a lot, like to the point where like sometimes he was masturbating 3, 4 times a day. It felt like sex was always a performance. He wanted the dirtiest, the this, the do this. And like, and I don't get me wrong, like I said, I mean, I'm here for all of it. That could be really hot sex. But as a woman, who genuinely typically needs a little bit of that slower start, the sensual, whatever. Like, let's build the connection. Let me feel safe in what we're doing. And then once I'm completely warmed up and we've done all of that, yeah, okay, you can get into some of the more, aggressive, dirtier side of like fucking. But it was like, start that way, minute one. And like the whole thing. And it got to the point where it was really one of those things where I'm like, "What is happening?" And then I'm like, "This is like this is a progress." Like, I feel like I'm literally making a movie here with the things you're asking me to do, and all I can think of, it's the porn. You've watched this, and now you're expecting that out of me, and that's all that works for you. Like, this guy had a hard time staying hard throughout a whole session, and I'm like,
yeah.
and I think that's why, you know?
It absolutely is. So what's happening there, with a guy that is watching porn regularly and particularly often? So if you don't watch porn for a while, say if you watched it maybe once a week, you can more or less watch the same porn and get off. You're going to have more or less the same sensitivity. But the more you increase the frequency that you're watching porn, the more you are habituated and desensitized to the same level of kink or porn or specialization or whatever you want to call it. And the more you need to essentially ramp it up, you have to escalate. You need to get more edgy, you need to get more extreme with it. And that's what you need in order to get off. It's very, very similar to, say, I drink alcohol once a week and a glass of wine or 2 does it for me. Where if but when I start drinking every night, 2 glasses of wine, well, suddenly 2 glasses of wine doesn't give me that intoxication. It's because you're desensitized and then you have to do it more. You add that along with the craving and the needing and the fact that you can't step away from it, you're starting to look at something like addiction. I'm not qualified to call anything an addiction because I'm not qualified in any of that stuff,
Right.
but it starts to look like it. And what you were experiencing as a woman, I've heard it from many women, and they're like, whoa, how far are we going to push this? I just feel like it's never enough of what I'm doing. And the thing that I want to point out is in what you were saying, I didn't hear at one point that you were like, wow, this is so much fun the way this is always escalating. That to me indicates that it's coming from a different place, where when you're coming from a place where you are connected with the guy, there kind of is a desire to escalate it. And a component of that is escalating it sexually in bed. You're doing more kinky stuff or you're doing more whatever,
Yeah.
whatever your thing is. But then you're also escalating it in the emotional intimacy. You're escalating it in the areas of dreaming about the future. You're escalating it in the areas of bringing brought into more and more your personal lives and your family lives. You're escalating it in a lot of other areas, and escalating it across the board in those different areas is what allows the escalating in sex to actually be safely nested in something where it's there. I mean, to get down to a chemical level, like, the dopamine hits, which are happening when you're happening porn, the more you shoot it, the more you got to have, heavier shots. But when you have the eye contact, when you have hand holding, when you have affection, when you have massaging, that is not sexualized. When you do that, and this is stuff that I talk with my guys with all the time, it's very important that you as a guy not just do this because she wants it, but that you start to open up your own sensitivities and pores into the fact that it's like, dude, have you never had a woman give you a foot rub? Like, do you not know how fucking mind blowing that is right after you've had sex? Okay, I don't care about kinky sex. Try that. And not only that, it's like, because the thing is, it's like, oftentimes, I don't know, like, I'm talking about my personal experience here. Oftentimes after sex, like, I am drifting off into la la land, and the woman is like ready to go and, like, I don't know, build a quilt or something. Like, she could
Yes.
like cook dinner, like, she has an abundance of energy. But when
Yeah.
that abundance of energy is focused back on me, well, like we talked about how male orgasms are kind of guaranteed. Well, they're also very limited. They're very short. And you can't like, like roll them one over another and like have this big experience. But what you can do is after you've had that chemical release, the rest of the body for a man, if he has sensitized himself properly, you're being massaged or something like that. I mean, that woman, by touching you or talking to you or whatever, she can take you on a trip that'll last another 30 minutes, and then send you into sleep of the best possible kind,
Yeah.
and it's like she's kind of built for that in a way, because she responds to the conclusion of sex a little differently than the guy does. But painting pictures like that for men are
Mhm.
pictures that obviously very hard to convey through videos. It's very hard
Yeah.
to kind of understand it. But when you've experienced things like that with women, that becomes what you're after. And you realize that the constant upping the game, more extreme, more escalation, you realize that like that's a dead end and you are depleting your resources while you're doing that. You're just draining more every single time that you do it. The sex should be something that it should be a replenishing activity. It's like it's one of many things that you do with your partner. And no matter how vanilla or how intense and crazy it is, that doesn't matter. It's supposed to fill you both up again and then make you want to go out and do other things in life. Like it's not supposed to be this draining thing. And pornography has that draining effect.
Yeah, and like that, like sex like that, all I kept thinking after is I was like, this is not sustainable. Time for this and like the energy to do this every time. And if like you're thinking about it, it's like, you're with your partner and you got like whatever, 2, 3 days you're spending together. And every time I'm like, it was like that. It's like, who wants to do that? It feels so, it
Men,
kind of almost makes me feel empty
well,
afterwards.
I would say similarly, who wants to drink alcohol all day, every day?
Yeah.
An alcoholic.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Who
yeah,
wants to be in a sexual state of arousal that is always being upped all the time? Well, a sex addict.
yeah,
Again, I'm not diagnosing anybody, but if the shoe fucking fits,
yeah,
you might want to ask yourself. And that's one of the things that I work with guys is where appropriate. I don't do this across the board with everybody, but where appropriate, I ask them, how much porn are you watching? And let's be honest here, how frequently and how often? Because and a lot of times the watching of the porn happens inside of a relationship. I mean, single guys are doing it, but usually it's not really an issue when you're having a one night stand because there's so much novelty in the person that it's not an issue. But when you're in a relationship, that sexual energy, if you're spending a lot of it watching porn, there actually isn't that much left for the person that you're with. And then you're like, well, and this is a rather petty little boy voice, is like, well, you're not turning me on enough. You're not X, Y, and Z. Buddy, let's get back to your identity. Are you the kind of guy that jerks off to porn 4 days a week and then you turn to your girl on Friday and go, why aren't you doing it for me? How about you exercise some discipline? You focus that energy towards the person that you're theoretically investing in and developing a deeper connection with, and actually do that. The reason a lot of guys do that though is because they're for on whatever level, not getting what they want in a relationship, and that brings in the communication component, which is a huge part of what I work with guys. Once you have the confidence, once you have the identity, once you know where you are, a huge component then is how do you communicate that effectively to the woman that just provides clarity? So for example, let's say I was that guy I just said, this has been watching too much porn. There's this, I'm realizing it. And then he comes and works with me. Okay. And then, I've coached him for a bit. We go back to it. What I would hope the guy would say is go, baby, I've been making a mistake and I need to apologize. Immediately, that woman is listening. Like her ears are open big and she wants to know, like, okay, where is this? And it's like, look, maybe she knows about it, maybe she doesn't, but it's like, look, I've actually been watching way more porn than I really should be. And it's not that the porn is bad. The thing that I've made the mistake of is I've been focusing my sexual energy over there rather than on you. I want my sexual energy to be focused on you. And she's going to be like, yeah, I like the sound of that. And then he needs to say, and I've been thinking about it. And the reason that I was deflecting it over there is I haven't really been honest with you. There's something that I've been wanting and I haven't shared it. There's something that has been bothering me and I didn't have the fucking balls to actually communicate it to you. And again, this is really important. I'm sorry that I dropped the ball here and I didn't communicate it to you. And that is the communication. There is no discussion. There is no, so this and back and forth. And well, if you did that, then I'd be able to. It's like you drop all that. You own it
yeah.
100%. And then you present it to her very clearly in ways that, again, do not burden her in any way. You are taking responsibility for your actions 100%. And the minute you say that to a woman, that woman is probably going to get a little turned on because that man was vulnerable with her. And if you want to talk about hot sex, some of the hottest sex in the world is makeup sex because we finally got vulnerable with each other. And then it's like, that's some of the hottest stuff is because we were vulnerable. Well, doing it as makeup sex, that's reactionary vulnerability. There was a problem. And as a result, we have to eventually get vulnerable. I really try to coach the guys into being proactively vulnerable, and those could be like I mentioned, other areas you're getting more intense and deep within your life. Proactive vulnerability about the future, proactive vulnerability about the potential of this being a relationship, proactive vulnerability about things that you've struggled with in the past, proactive vulnerability about desires that you have with her that you haven't voiced yet in and out of the bedroom. And when you're proactively doing this, you're actually moving further and further away from an argument because you're doing it voluntarily as opposed to waiting and reacting. And everybody's on their worst behavior when you're reacting, like everybody.
Mhm. It's such valuable, like, information and, like, perspective to hear from a guy's perspective, and especially because it's the work that you're doing, it's the real conversations that you're having with men that are going through these things, and I think it's stuff that, like, sometimes women just don't know, or if they have a guy friend that tells them something, it's typically a guy friend's perspective of, like, 1 or 2 things that they're just shooting off the cuff, but there's no real value in it per se, so this is good. I do have a question, though, so something that I find that seems to come up in conversation with a lot of married men is the whole, yeah, okay, so when they talk about their sex lives, they talk about like, yeah, yeah, like, well, we're busy, we got kids, and and I work late, and we do it, I don't know, once every couple months, or like she does the wifely duty, or you know, maybe once or twice a month, and, and yeah, it's pretty, like, basic, like, and then I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, somebody who's been, I guess, single for long periods of time. Don't want to say was. I was. I am a very sexual person, very sensual person. I also worked in an industry. I was a stripper and I was around nudity and I was around all of this stuff. I've lived a very different life in that realm, sex and all of these things. So I've seen a lot of different things. I've had different experiences that not say a lot of women have or maybe men have. So my view on good sex and healthy sex and desire and passion and my craving for that, I feel like is very healthy. But then it's like when I'm talking to men and women, I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, we do it once or twice, and oh yeah, maybe just missionary." And I'm like, so you guys are content having this very unfulfilling sex life, unfulfilling intimacy in your relationship. And I'm like, so it's like your roommates essentially. Like, to me, if you don't have that intimate connection with somebody and you're not feeling desired and you're not desiring your partner in a very healthy, passionate, loving way where you want to have sex with them, all of these things, I'm like, I don't understand why that's enough. Why is that just enough for some people to not experience that and not have that? So from a male's perspective, what are you guys doing? Why is that okay for you guys to sit
Right.
in these relationships
Yeah.
where it's just like, meh,
So,
you
okay,
know?
okay. So let me, all right. So let me, so there's a lot there. And that's a great question. So, first of all, let's just roll it back outside of our modern context. So, you go over to Eastern cultures, arranged marriages and the obligation to the family is much, much higher than it is over here in the West, particularly in the United States. And I lived in Asia for a couple of years and I heard women explaining to me that their mothers told them, don't look at your husband like romance. Look at him like a brother that you just happen to have babies with. Literally, that's what it is. Okay, so just understand that there is a certain very old, deep commitment to the tribe, and the perpetuation of everything. So let's just say that part is going to play a role. Stability has value, okay? And it can be overvalued and the individual experience, can be undervalued. And I think that's what you're talking about. A lot of guys I think that are in that situation, well, they simply think this is as good as it gets, because that's in the echo chamber of the other dads in the neighborhood in the 3 block radius. They're basically hearing this is all it is, this is all that's possible, which basically means that the fire inside of them has gone down to a pilot light size at that point. When I ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you burning with it? And it's below fives a lot of the time. And what I have found is the solution to that is I host events. Usually we do them once a month and men get together and they are everything again from like early 20s to late 70s. Guys are showing up and I'm in the heart of it and I'm I'm literally grabbing somebody's phone helping them with a text message on Hinge or whatever. Like I'm like there's that part of it. But a huge part of it that the men keep telling me is like, my God, I feel so on fire after having been around the other men that are trying to improve their game, that are trying to do something. When you're in an echo chamber of other men that are in we're just going to say a bit of a rut, where the sex isn't that hot, they're sort of doing the day-to-day things and they're like, well, this is kind of as good as it gets. Yeah, you take a guy like that and put him into the situation. I have this all the time when I'm networking and I'm talking with guys and they're like, oh, well, you're not for me, you're dating relationships. And I was like, so is your marriage not a relationship? And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, are you dating the woman you're married to? And they're like, well, what do you mean? And then I'll start talking very quickly and we will very quickly get to a point of he's like, buddy, you're right. Like, I need to be bringing a lot more fire into this household. Let's not, it's not just the wife. I mean, like you need to be setting the example of a man that has activated fire inside of him. That's the example that you need to be setting for your children if you have them. That fire has to be activated by an older male. That's how it works. All these initiation rites that go back to, Aboriginal, indigenous peoples and all that kind of stuff. There is always a very intentional ceremony, a very intentional ritual. That's the word I was looking for, where the older men go to the younger men and they bring them out and they scare the crap out of them. And they put masks on them and they cut them and they tattoo them and then they push them out, into the wild. And all of this is meant to activate this active fire masculinity inside of them. That's what it does. And Women don't have to go through this. I mean, at a certain age, they start menstruating. At a certain age, they possibly have children. At a certain age, they go through menopause. And like there's these phase shifts that just happen in a woman's body. And, and they're different. You are fundamentally prepubescent, postpubescent. You are pre childbearing, post childbearing. You are premenopausal, postmenopausal. Like these are different women you are in the different phases of your life.
Right.
Guys aren't, other than like the pubic hair and like, the beer gut, like we don't really change over the course of our life. Like we really don't.
Right. Yeah.
We have to proactively do things, and doing it alone is almost impossible for a man. Like I've had to do an incredible amount of work with myself without having proper male leadership and mentorship to do it. I've had to go digging with a shovel for years to start to find some of the things, that I share with the guys that I work with. But when you activate those things, and here's the thing, if you stop working on it, the fire goes back down. That's how it is. Guys, masculine energy must be proactive. And whenever it's not proactive, David Data is a big name in the masculine space. His book, The Way of the Superior Man, one of my favorite lines out of that book is every moment of a man's life is either a test or a celebration. And when you say that to a guy, the guy's like, truth. Like, that is absolutely true. When I'm being honest, if you are engaged and activated in life, every moment is, we'll say, even with your woman, is either a test or it's a fucking hot celebration. Like it's one of those two. And as a man, you need to understand and accept that about life. And you need to lead yourself towards feeding that fire. You have to have that self leadership quality. You have to nurture it. Being around other men really helps to bring it out, but ultimately it's on you to do it. So when it comes to marriages and all the stuff has gone down, it's like, dude, I bet you, I mean, like, what was that movie with Kevin Spacey? American Beauty. There's the young girl and it wakes him up and suddenly he starts working out. Like something woke up inside of him. Well, if you're that guy, and you start working out in your garage and your wife is like, what got into you? Your answer should be, does it matter? Do you like what you're feeling? You know, and,
Yeah.
and then you start doing things with your children differently. You're not passive. You're not consuming. You are the producer in the household. And that is one of the big things, I mean, American society, I'm not sure how much in Canada it's the same, but it's probably similar. Like we're just constant consumers. Calories, entertainment, sex, all of it. We're just consuming it. I really believe that we should be the producers of these things. When back on the farms, when I produce food, I consume a healthy amount. When I produce, happiness in the woman that I'm with, I consume a healthy amount of sex. When I produce money, and I'm doing it in good ways that provide value and purpose to it, I spend a healthy amount of it. And there's a balance. But we've been taught to just consume the shit out of things, run up the credit card debt and get as fat as you want on pizza. Like we're consumers. It takes being proactive for a guy to turn that around.
Do you notice major shifts in a short period of time with the men that you work with, the single ones and the ones that are in relationships, where this is the work that you're doing, the things that you're teaching are so, I guess, tangible in a sense where it's like these little shifts make such a massive difference, whether this is mind blowing compared to, say, the not so hot sex they were having.
Right.
But now it's like, I've done these things and we're having really hot sex, like, tell
Right.
me more.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yes, they do. It does light them up immediately, but it can also go out almost as immediately. John Gray, the author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, that book back in the 90s, he said that men are like blowtorches and women are like ovens. So guys heat up fast, but they also cool down fast. Women, it takes a while to get warmed up in the bedroom, but once she's there, she holds the heat. So guys similarly will kind of get it and they'll use it, but then they'll switch back off kind of almost as fast. And this is where I really don't mind sharing all the secrets right here on your podcast. I don't mind sharing it because the secrets they're the principles and they're there. The hard part is developing the introspection about oneself to know when and where we are falling out of alignment with the most effective principles. And that is what takes months of, coursework, workshops and, coming together in groups and private coaching sessions with male coaches and female coaches. It takes all of that together for a guy to actually start to change, to rewire his brain, to start to, you know, find the patterns that are leading him back into a dull space and realize what he needs to change in the programming to have a more activated on fireplace. And I would say that a guy does immediately feel it. I have, I don't know, an 80 or 90% return rate on all of my events. When I host an event, guys come back because there was such an absence of this type of contagious fire, healthy masculine fire. Where this isn't macho, alpha stuff where we're trying to, like push each other around. This is genuine lifting up and getting each other on fire. That is a contagious thing. But the funny part is guys don't need to experience it with a woman for them to have a very turned on experience about it. And that's what I keep trying to tell them. It's again, I'm a dating and relationship coach, but the truth is I'm a masculinity coach. And when that stuff is on fire, like, hey, the whole sex and women thing works itself out real quick when you've got it going on. The way you get it going on, paradoxically, is to not figure it out with women. You figure it out on your own and with other guys. That's where you figure it out. I'll just close with this. So the book I was working on this last fall, it's been put on the back shelf for now, for business reasons. We have other priorities. But it's called Women Love Unicorns: Unlocking the Divine Beast in Men. So the unicorn is the divine beast. And the unicorn
Oh, okay.
yeah. And the unicorn is an extended metaphor in the book. And so a unicorn literally is a magical beast, like from all the way back to like a
Yeah, a rare one. You make it sound
yeah.
like the play on that is like that it's rare that to have this masculine
It is. It is.
man.
It is rare, but the potential is everywhere. And again, just to echo it back, again, when women say, what would make me really happy? And then
Yeah,
women saying, no, you didn't do the things to make me happy. That will help activate the unicorns. It will help bring them out. Don't tell us yes when we're not doing a good enough job. That sends us the wrong
yeah.
signal. Yeah. But the whole point is it's a magical beast. Well, the first step is bring out the beast. A guy has to do that. And that has nothing to do with any interaction with a woman. A lot of guys try to figure out, oh, well, the way to be a man is, and everything is defined by these rules and back and forth and how you do something with a woman. Don't do this, always do that. And it's like, no, your masculine energy, your beast, bringing out the beast happens before you step out of your house and well before you walk into that bar where she might be sitting. If you're trying to turn it on once you see the woman, I'm sorry, buddy, it is too late. You did not start early enough, and you need to activate it earlier and have it going on so that when the woman crosses your path, you are already there and you are already activated and doing your thing.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, aside from just working with men in that regard, you do a few other things. So this black box dating, let's talk about that briefly. Like, what is this? And like, seriously, is this
Yeah.
something that either you can bring up here or like, can we come down there to that?
Yeah, yeah. So Black Box Dating right now, it is the podcast is just about to come out. We've recorded our first episode. It's coming out soon. It is dating and relationship advice basically for men. But it's all about, me interviewing other experts and then also coaching certain men and showing essentially me what I've given an illustration of, actually doing it with a man, sort of a call-in show style. And you can see not just me talking about the principles, but you can see me picking up on the opportunity to apply the principle and see how that reactivates that energy in the man. But Black Box Dating right now, it is limited to coaching men on dating and relationships and activating that. And there are obviously plans for other things to do later on with it, including the possibility of singles events and stuff like that. But again, got to stay focused. You have to grow from the place that you are today. That's one of the lessons of
Yes.
humility. Is it's like I can see it, it's all laid out there, and the invitations and everything fabulous, and I want to, but I must be true to growing from the place that we are today. And the place that we're growing today, the real tree that bears all the fruit, is men waking up to the amount of chemistry. Just to bring it back to hot sex,
Yeah.
like the amount of chemistry that a man can create in himself and with the other men in his life without any women being present. And then he brings that to his woman. Every man that says, well, she's not turning me on, I am like, sorry, but fuck you, dude. You need to turn yourself on. You bring that to the table, that, and then you hold that in her presence. You dangle it in front of her and you see whether or not she's ready to scamper on over and do something good with it. That is bringing hot, sexy energy as a man, over there to the, to the situation. Trying to build chemistry with somebody, no, you're building 90% of it on your own. And then the way you interact with a woman is, it goes from there.
No, it's so true, and, like, honestly, I feel like such valuable information in the sense, especially I loved absolutely what you said about, like, burdening the woman with the little examples as things as simple as planning the date, picking the restaurant, making all of these decisive decisions for us so that we don't have to do it, because truthfully, when it feels like we have to make those decisions, I see this as moms, single moms, and let's be real, there's a whole realm of single moms out there that are dating. When we have to make those decisions in a relationship, in a new relationship that's not with that partner, it feels like we have another child. And it's like I'm raising another boy. And it's just it is a turnoff. It is so hot for somebody just to tell you, I'm coming to pick you up at this time. Dress, this is the style, blah, 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 casual. You'll need running shoes, whatever it is. That's exciting, and I'm already turned on thinking about, "Wow, you've gone out of your way to plan something for us, and, like, let's skip it, like, just come inside now, we're gonna have that really hot sex because 'cause I'm
Yeah,
so turned on
exactly.
by
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
initiative
And then I'll put
to
the
do it
makeup
in the first.
and then
Yes,
I'll put the
right?
makeup back on and we'll go do what we were gonna do. Yeah. We
Like,
can be 10 minutes late to the comedy show, no problem. We need to work this out right now because this is already hot.
yeah,
Yeah, and that is the spontaneous side that comes out, which is the hot sex, and
yes.
yeah, and that's absolutely there. And so let me give you my understanding of why that's so effective on the feminine nature. And feel free to, to do this, but unless someone has experienced a lot of abuse, and trauma in their childhood, little girls are lighthearted. There's a carefree nature, unicorns and rainbows, and there's a carefree nature behind that. And that extends up, through young adulthood. And then when motherhood sets in, there's a set of responsibilities, and that light kind of changes, and necessarily so. I mean, someone is literally feeding off of you, climbing on you, and there's all this, and there is a nature is putting a burden on a mother, because there are dependent children, and only the mother can do those jobs. Men simply can't do it. And even if we can, technically speaking, the nature is still there from 250,000 years of being Homo sapiens. Like, it's still there. So when we're in an adult dating space, and particularly when men are dating single moms, you need to realize that woman has burdens on her and you want to not burden her at all. And when you're doing it right, and I could go into the rest of the book, by the way, because it's a magical beast. The magic behind it is how you actually create that lightheartedness. And the one rule comes from that book: don't burden the woman. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah. I'll just give it to you real quick. So the magic
Yeah.
is two ingredients and one rule. So first of all, bring out the beast. Beast comes out, and he's like, you can feel him when he walks in the room. Men can feel a beast when he walks in the room. Everyone reacts to it on an instinctive, visceral level. Okay, so you do that. Well, okay, the first ingredient is called it's safety first. Nothing's going to happen with a woman until she feels safe. Period. She's just not. If he's a beast, there's already some excitement and attention that's there, and he plops down on a bar stool next to her. She needs to feel that there is a safety there. And ideally, she feels more safe in his presence than she did before he arrived. That's like the dream scenario, is that she actually is like, wow, actually, I've got this beast next to me, and I know that, like, ain't nothing going to happen here as long as he's next to me. That's safety first. And let alone I feel safe from him. He's not going to do anything that's disrespectful or whatever. And once safety is established, and once you're there and you're at the bar and you're like, okay, and this guy's got his game on, you're like, the woman's like, all right, so now what? And that is the title of the next chapter, the now what. And that's the woman inviting the man to essentially extend invitations. It's like, okay, buddy, show me what you got. Show me what kind of creativity you have. Show me what kind of a world you can take me off to. What, again, we'll go back to the unicorn, metaphor. A little girl, the unicorn arrives. Little girl's on the back of the beast. She is safe. Nothing can touch a unicorn. and nothing can touch a girl on the back of a unicorn. She is 100% safe. Well, that unicorn is now what? The girl has no idea where that unicorn is going to take her. That unicorn is going to take her on all kinds of adventures, see weird creatures and magical places, and sleep out under the stars and all kinds of things. And she knows that she's 100% safe to fall asleep on the back of that unicorn and that she's going to see things that no one else could show her. She would never be able to find it on her own. That's now what? Now, what is essentially extending invitations beyond the normal scope of what a woman experiences. And then the one rule is don't burden the woman. The unicorn carries her, period. And again, you take a single mom, you give her that experience, she's right back to the way she was when she was a girl. She's feeling light-hearted. That is what I believe a woman wants to feel more than anything is lighthearted. She wants to feel carefree again. She wants to feel that the burdens, not only have they not been added, but the burdens are actually being removed from her environment on a perpetual ongoing basis. And there's a beast in that environment that keeps them totally safe and, plans stuff for the kids and her that are spontaneous. And it's like, just get some swimsuits and put them in the car. We got a 2-hour drive. Let's go. Well, I trust the man. He's a beast, and it's like, oh my gosh. And she's just, well, hang on, let me grab some snacks. Let me, and suddenly she gets to be lighthearted and carefree and creative, and add her own splash of style on top of things. And so for me, that is really the ideal state that a man is trying to bring a woman back to is that lighthearted, carefree state. Because a woman that is lighthearted and carefree, I mean, her heart is there for the taking. Like her heart is so ready to have sex. And she gives herself, I mean, it's not just hot. I mean, it is pure and innocent and like whole. And it is just, I mean, this whole thing that guys want to date younger women, that's what it actually is, in my opinion. What they want is the carefree nature of the younger woman. It's not the body. I mean, yes, the body is nice, but the truth is, it's the lightheartedness that is irresistible to a man, that she just smiles without concern, without care. That is the part that is, oh my God, how do you resist that? A woman that walks into a bar and has that carefree nature, I mean, like she just, that's the honey that brings all the boys over.
It's funny you say that because as you say that, so I have a tendency of dating younger men and I like younger men. But in how you just explained that, it's because of that fact that I am a lighthearted, silly kind of girl, whatever, like playful, like to have fun. And I get more turned on in situations and things like that where it's like you're laughing, you're being silly, a guy's not judging himself for doing dumb things. And so younger guys hold that younger, still immature spirit where it allows me to be that younger, immature, lighthearted version of myself that I'm so much more turned on by than the guy who, is 50 years old and grumpy because of work and experiences. My ex-wife sucks. And I'm like, nothing about that makes me feel like I can be playful and fun. Crazy how that just that light bulb went off. I'm like, well, that makes sense,
That
you know?
and that older man is dimming the light that's already shining.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is what happens to a lot of women in relationships. The light gets dimmed. Pretty much every woman that I have met where she is the one initiating the divorce, she's like, just get this hairy 200-pound monkey off my back. It is a bunch of weight that I'm carrying around. I am carrying this extra burden. I just want to have to deal with me and my child. Like, not me and my child and this 200-pound monkey. Like, I just want to get back to that because he is actually dampening and dimming her light. And that's great, that the younger guys, make it so that there's, more silliness. They're not judging. They're not as all that. But I would say, though, also, well, let me just ask you. So if a man that's 50 years old shows up and he has all of that still activated in him, and he has it, but it's rooted in a much larger sense of safety, a much larger financial base, a much larger depth of understanding and maturity about himself and about you. And he's still lighting up your light and taking you to exotic locations. Or, I mean, this is actually the example that I give in the book. The section is called Broken Roads. So, like, you're going back home with your girlfriend or wife, and you're, the same old path you always take on the freeway to get there, and there's the off ramp. And you just decide as a guy, no, I'm not going to take the off ramp. It's like 8:30, 8:45 at night, and you just go. And suddenly everybody is on edge. And they're like, what's going to happen next? And you say to her, I don't know why. I just don't want to go home yet. Are you down for just seeing what happens next? And you have to break out of that old pattern to do it. You don't have to have some jet setter lifestyle, taking on a plane out to Hawaii or something. Like, it doesn't require all of that. What it requires is the courage and particularly the insight to identify the opportunities to break out of the normal pattern and give her the now what moment. Well, what is you? We're about to find out, and it could go anywhere. It's not a matter of spending money. We've been given the message that hyper consumption, hyperized spending is the only way to create this sense of immense freedom and this infusion of energy. So not true. All you have to do is do something very unexpected, such as not getting off the freeway when you were planning to. When you do that, suddenly there is an exhilaration that comes out, and you might just be getting ice cream, like, at some shop, and you just turn to your girl and go, hey, find us a place to get some ice cream. She's like, on it. And then the two of you are together and you're having an us moment, a we moment, doing it. And those are the memories. Every single hot date that anybody's been on, there's a spontaneous energy, a chain reaction that leads to one unexpected moment after another. That's simply what it's built on. That is what the magical date is built on. And we forget that. And as guys, it is our job, I firmly believe, to recognize these patterns and to deliver the experience we want to have for ourselves, and then offer them, share them, and invite women to have them with us. And let them be as lighthearted as they can be, because lighthearted women are horny. Like, lighthearted women
Yeah.
want to have sex.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, so to answer your question, yes, if I found a 50-year-old man that could embody all of those things that these young men still have, but they still lack the emotional availability and maturity, absolutely. I've just yet to find it. So if you train a few,
I was about to say, how many 50-year-old men do you want me to give your phone number to that are going to watch this videos and go, I'm booking a ticket to Alberta tonight, and they are all in the way because, no, because I have men, they're like that, and the truth is, like, we're not all shut down and we're not all there.
yeah,
It's a mixed thing. But the more I work with them, they really catch on. And this is a natural
yeah.
state for men to be in, but it takes proactive nurturing to be there. But, they're there and they would, you're a beautiful woman, and they would be like,
Alice, I got about 5 women that are just as pretty, just as got their shit together,
yeah,
likely older men that, like, I'm telling you, we would
okay.
even go to Denver. I believe that's where you're based out
that
of.
is, that is where we are.
Like,
Yes. Denver.
yes, I'm telling you, we are searching, we are ready, and, like, long distance is great, more adventure, more
Yep.
pl I
Yep.
get to leave my house, I get to go somewhere else and have
Yep.
0 responsibilities.
Yep.
I'm lighthearted when I'm not at home.
Yeah. You're
Really
traveling.
hot sex.
Yeah.
So, like
Absolutely. We are gonna get sex and bacon and black box dating into a lot of trouble after this
I'm here
episode
for
gets
it.
out. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll follow up on that after camera, after we're done
Yes,
with
I love
this.
that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm you know what, like, this has been such an enjoyable conversation, and I feel like there's just so much value for women and so much value for men listening as well. Not only to be able to realize, like, what they can do to make those changes in their life and their relationships, or even into creating the relationships they want that can give them that really hot sex, but also in the sense where I haven't come across a lot of male coaches that are working with men on these type of things. So I think it's very valuable for anybody listening, especially to be able to reach out to you. Obviously, regardless of where you are, you can still, do one-on-one sessions, people live, all of those things, workshops and all of that. So, you know, I don't, it's funny. I could keep talking forever about this stuff because I genuinely love it. I'm just like, oh, this is amazing. But, maybe we'll have to jump back on and do another interview, a little later on. But for everybody listening, where can they find you? What are the actual full-on details of, your work? And, where can they reach out and essentially dive into this?
Yep. So we are currently working on the new website, Black Box Dating. It's a bit of a rebranding. The website to go to today is dallasbluth.com. Dallas like the city, BLUTH.com. My YouTube channel is where most of my videos and stuff are. At dallasbluth.com, though, you can find all the social media links, the videos. You can book a session with me right there on the website. Also, there's just a contact us form. That's the best way if you want to reach out to me directly. We are currently packaging essentially a level one black box dating package. It is 3 workshops. The workshops are either in person or online, depending on who is currently enrolled in level one. We're doing three workshop packages. One of them is based on confidence. Another one is based on communication and conversation skills. And the last one is based on kind of your packaging, your dress, your look, your profile online, and all of that. And that's where the female coaches really step in and help guys really up the game. And then another part of the package is we do 4 private sessions. One of them is with a male coach, one of them is with a female coach. And then the last 2 we actually package we let the person decide what's the most beneficial to them. And then weekly check-in meetings with guys that are going through the transformation that we're doing. They check in, they have live access to me, online events once a week. And the idea is that's about a 3.5 month process that they go through. And, with the 4 private sessions, 3 workshops, and weekly check-in gatherings that we do, which is access to me and the energy with all the guys. Right now, we're only charging $12.99 for that package. Again, it's about 3.5 months. It's a heck of a deal. People keep telling me I need to be charging more, but we're loving how many guys are coming into the group. So we don't want to create too much resistance right now. That's actually
Totally.
not available online because we're still constructing the new website. But if you contact me directly, through the contact us on dallasbluth.com, we can get you the information so that you can jump in on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I highly recommend that for any of the women listening as well. Redirect your male friends, redirect your partners, your boyfriends, your dating prospects, for this information. And it's great. And, or even to listen to this podcast episode because there's so much value in it. But yeah, thank you very much. And I'll make sure that we do share all of your information in the show notes as well. So everybody has it for easy access. And very grateful that, we connected and we had this conversation. It's been really fun. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, Sarah. This has been a true pleasure. And I look forward to being on again in the future.
yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Thanks.